Good evening, and welcome to the Saratoga Foothill Club Public Lecture Series. My name is Kathy Schroeder, and I have the pleasure of being the club president this year. And immediately turn it over to Linda Callan. She is one of our public lecture committee members, and she's going to do the introductions. Thank you.
Thank you. A real shocker to most people. It doesn't matter which side you're on, it's just a shocker. So we want someone to explain this to us. So we prevailed upon the expert, Larry Gerston. He's so respected in this valley and elsewhere in the Bay Area. He's a professor emeritus from San Jose State University, and he's spent years doing politics. He's written many, many books on politics. A big welcome to Dr. Larry Gerston.
Thank you, Linda, but now I'm scared. Such a big burden here explaining this mess. What's new? Like many of you, I have been watching elections for 50 years. I have seen them all. I saw Barry Goldwater. I saw George McGovern. I saw all these kinds of people who I thought would never get there. I gave a speech to the San Jose Rotary Club last January. And, there were 17 Republicans and whatnot running, there was Clinton and Sanders on the other side. And they started asking me, who's going to get the nomination? I said, well, I'll tell you one person who isn't. So much for expertise. And so, I guess like so many people, I have been wrong. So I just find it turns out that this is my second favorite election. Now, I'm not necessarily revealing who I voted for, but in terms of the surprise and the expertise, only the election of 2000 for me was more exciting, because every night it was like a drama. They'd haul me up there and say, well, what now what? What judge is doing what? And of course, that went 5 weeks before we knew who would be president. And like this time, Al Gore won a majority of the votes. Yes. George Bush is the president. Yes. Although Al Gore still thinks he's the president. That's another story. And this time, of course, for the fifth time in history, we have that again. That Hillary Clinton has won the majority of votes. But again, because of the Electoral College, the president is Donald Trump, president-elect. So what happened? This to me deserves some attention. Let's figure this thing out. Whether you're happy or miserable, we need to know. Okay? And the fact of the matter is that just 2 days ago, in the morning of Tuesday, 2 days ago, Hillary Clinton and her people were beside themselves. They were euphoric. They couldn't wait. She'd written this wonderful victory speech and wrote an outline of defeat. Cared about that, because everybody knew that she was going to win. And it is rumored that Trump only wrote one speech. A concession speech, because everybody in the Trump camp, they put on the big, proud face and all that stuff before the president. They all knew, all the polls said it, he was toast. That's all there was to it. And so, we got to explain our way out. Who are you going to blame? We're blaming the media. That's always a good thing to blame. We'll blame this, we'll blame that. But in the end, he had a concession speech. There was no thought about, a victory speech. That's how it looked to everyone. So everybody predicted her to win. Now she lost. And one of the things that's happened here is that, everyone is pointing at the pollsters. Boy, did they blow it. Boy, you can't trust these guys anymore. That's for darn sure. I did polling for 25 years. I know a little bit about it. And I'm going to go swim upstream here and tell you, yes, you lost, but all the major polls were right. And you say, Larry, what have you been drinking in there? But let me explain. You know, they were right because there's something we call the margin of error. Now this always gets me, margin of error. What? You know, margin, who cares? You know, and you got to read the small print at the very, very bottom, the one where you need a magnifying device. And it says, you know, well, we believe there's a 95% likelihood that we're within 3 points, 4 points, plus or minus. 3 points, 4 plus or minus could be 6 points or 8 points. So we're 95% sure that we're within 8 points. Okay, well, everybody could be right for that. and that's what happened. And that's what happened. So take a look. Take a look. I'm envisioning a screen here. Sorry, it's my other job. But I mean, if you look at Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes. Trump won by 1%. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. He won by 1%. Michigan, 16 electoral votes. He won by 1%. Florida, 29 electoral votes. He won by 1%. And you're talking about a few thousand votes in every state. And now when people say, you know, why should I vote? What does it matter? If this isn't a civics lesson, I don't know what is. Because it turns out, you know, 7 million fewer people voted this time than voted in 2000. We're going backwards. Okay? 7 million fewer people voted. And it shouldn't be no surprise that most of them were Democrats. We'll get to that in a minute as to why. But if you add up these 75 votes, electoral votes I just talked about, okay, along with the 228 that she's won, she wins easily. That's how close it was. It had to be close since she won more outright votes, you know, individual votes, than Donald Trump. So, and that's why, you know, in a sense, the pollsters right now are getting a bad rap because of the top line. The top line says we predict this, but if you read to the bottom, you know, we're 95% sure that we're within 3 or 4%. So that's how difficult it was, and that's why I think, in a sense, they don't really deserve all the blame they've been getting. But the fact of the matter is, those 6 or 7 million people were largely, not entirely, minorities and women. We'll get to that in a second. But what made the difference? Well, the fact that there were large sectors of society dominated by working class whites who just rejected the status quo. And, you know, it's a funny thing, but, you know, when you say, please elect me because I'm going to continue the policies of President Obama, which, by the way, some people would say were pretty successful, bringing back 15 million jobs, lowering the unemployment rate to 4.9% after we had that great recession 8 years ago. Some people say, well, that's kind of a good thing to continue. That's continuing the status quo. The status quo. And it's clear that there's a large swath of society out there that did not want to continue the status quo. So, you know, why? Well, because there were government insiders, Republicans and Democrats alike, who were just feeding themselves at the public trough, thinking nothing about the little guy. And this gridlock that we have observed over the last several years drew increasing frustration from this large swath of society that wanted something done. And the funny thing is, Donald Trump, you know, is he a Republican? I'm not so sure what he is. But the fact that he labeled himself a Republican. But by the way he talked, you wouldn't know what he was because he was attacking Republicans, he was attacking Democrats, he was attacking everybody. Okay? And in the process, he separated himself from the establishment. Ironically, this billionaire, you know, who managed the tax system brilliantly, and who managed to avoid losing his own money when he went bankrupt 4 times, the American way, I guess. You know, he is fighting the party establishment. It blows one's mind, okay? But the fact of the matter is, for these people, politics would no longer be tolerated if it were be the politics as usual. The dispossessed, they wanted real change. They wanted real change. They didn't want to follow the status quo. And they would not settle for some kind of appeasement. They would not settle for token responses. They were angry. And you saw it at all of those Trump rallies. There was anger in the room, anger in the stadium, wherever he was. And as a matter of fact, they said to themselves, any change will be better than no change. We'll roll the dice. because whatever happens can only be better than what we see, this group I'm talking about. And so alienation, and I mean profound alienation, triumphed over a classic American concept we call incrementalism, where we get things done, you take 2 steps forward, you take 1 step backwards, maybe you stop at the side, but you move forward slowly, gradually, like the tortoise, okay? And that just would no longer be satisfying for these people. The old political, old traditional party coalitions, as we've always known them in the past, Republicans, low taxes, less government, all that kind of stuff, Democrats, more government, higher taxes, take care of the poor, higher minimum wage, those old party coalitions held together by outdated symbolism rather than substance fell apart. Okay, the what? Now the why. Why did it happen? How could this happen, given everything we knew, particularly going in, given the environment we had here, that was moving along, recovering from the recession, doing so much better than all these other countries? How, in spite of all that, could we take this turn? Well, what we had was a confluence, an extraordinary confluence of groups who had nothing in common except their shared contempt for the status quo. And we can describe what happened with 3 factors: demographic, economic, and political. And it was the confluence of all these 3 factors that led to this explosion we called the 2016 election. So let's go through these one at a time. Demographic factors. Largely these white, uneducated males. Ironically, long-time cornerstones of the Democratic Party. They turned away. They turned away from what they viewed as empty promises to Donald Trump, who offered, of all things, hope. The same 4-letter word that Barack Obama used that inspired people in 2008 really was Trump was offering. Hope. I'm offering you hope because I'm not part of the status quo. Stick with me. We're going to make America great again. Okay? We are. And that's the irony. The way that he himself had insulted so many groups, hardly anybody left, although he did not insult the white, uneducated male. So with that, we saw that come election time, African Americans, Latinos, they underperformed because even they had loosened connections with the Democratic Party. We saw, from their point of view, ongoing struggles for equality, Black Lives Matter, and those kinds of movements. The way police had treated them, disproportionate incarceration rates, blacks and Latinos having 60% of the prison cells filled, even though they're 30% of the population. Women, another Democratic pillar, via the gender gap, also underperformed. Perhaps because they just didn't see Hillary Clinton as that nurturing candidate they'd hoped for as the first female president. So here you have it, this large swath of white voters who turned to Trump. And then you have all these other groups, reliably Democratic, okay, who suddenly turned out, but not quite so much. We'll get to that in a second. So much for the demographic. There was big change, big demographic. By the way, another part of demographic change has to do with the fact that in the last 20 years, we have seen just a complete turnaround, a big movement of non-whites in this country. A lot of people are happy about that. They call it diversity, multicultural. But for that large group of uneducated whites, not so good, okay? So just 20 years ago, it was, the country was 79% non-Hispanic white. Now it's 69% non-Hispanic white. By the year 2050, it'll be 50-50. That's rapid change. And not everybody handles rapid change very well. So the demography in this country has changed a lot, and it's changed quickly. And we often have trouble with change in itself, much less quick change. Let's look at the economic factors. Yes, we've had an economic recovery. You bet we've had a fabulous economic recovery in some quarters. And that's exactly the point. It's been an uneven economic recovery. Here, of all places, who knows from an uneven economic recovery? All we know about is traffic, right? All we know about is soaring rent rates. All we know about is these companies, these McDonald's and cleaners and the little stores who can't hire people even $15 an hour because they're going to go work someplace else and make a lot more. That's what we know. We know an unemployment rate in Silicon Valley of 3.8%. I swear to you, the only person not working is my brother-in-law. And let me tell you, you can get down to zero and he won't be. But I digress. So if we look at that economic recovery, a hint as to how uneven it's been. During the Great Recession, 21% of the jobs lost were what we call low-income jobs. They were people not making very much. They were at the bottom of the tier, okay? And they lost their jobs. And then come these 15 million jobs. Wow, okay, everybody's going to be billionaires. Not so fast, not so fast. It turns out that while we lost 21%, that was the number of jobs lost during the Great Recession. Of the jobs that came back, 58% were low-income jobs. So here you are working in Detroit, and you're making your $50, $60 an hour with benefits. You lose your job. The unions go kaput. The auto companies are on the verge of bankruptcy, only saved through the various legislative efforts. And now you get your job back, but you get it at $20 an hour. That's the kind of thing we saw over and over again. But a lot of us didn't think about that. We didn't think about that because we didn't see that. They saw it, we didn't see it. While those at the top flourished, places like this going gangbusters, those at the bottom stewed. They stewed with increasingly less purchasing power. There's so many ways to look at this. I'll give you one statistic that I just think sticks out so well. In 1991, the difference, and this comes of the 350 largest companies in the United States, the difference between the pay of the CEO and the typical worker, the average worker, was 100 to 1. Okay, CEOs make 100, well they should, after all. A lot of responsibilities, whatnot, okay? 100 to 1. In 2014, the difference between the CEO and the average worker was 303 to 1. So yeah, we've got some recovery, absolutely, but it's not exactly what we would call an even recovery. And so they stewed, and they continued to stew. Who were the losers? Well, we've already given you a hint. The losers were the uneducated. The losers were the unskilled. Squeezed out by globalization. That's really what did it. That's what did it, because what used to take 100 people to make it in a plant now takes 4. Just watch the machines go. Okay, we saw it with textiles, we see it with automobiles, we've seen it with one industry after another where automation steps in, and that's what replaces so many jobs. You don't need so many people to watch the buttons. And nonetheless, people can't get that. If you've lost your job, you're not blaming it on a machine, you're blaming it on somebody. And who do they blame? They blame illegal immigrants. They blame poor trade deals. And who's walking right into this? Now you're talking my language, says the Donald. Okay? Yeah, it's those illegal immigrants, it's those Mexican rapists and murderers, it's those bad trade deals that they've been making. They're the ones that have cost you your jobs. And you know what? When you're kind of desperate, you kind of look at anything. And that made some sense to some of these people. Trump seized on these fissures. He's a master. He really is. And I'm not saying this in any kind of a subtle or insincere way. He is a master. He's a master psychologist. And I think he's not given nearly enough credit. Maybe some blame. But he's not been given enough credit for the fact that he saw these holes. And he seized on those holes. He walked right into those fissures. And they became his own walls, if you will. And so while Democrats focused on the mega data, 15 million new jobs, 4.9% unemployment rate, they missed all the subtle stuff. They missed the fact that people had gone back to work, but not making nearly what they were now. They missed the fact that sometimes they had to work 2 and 3 jobs to make some of what they made before. They missed the fact that people were getting out of high school and couldn't find a job. There were no jobs. There were only so many jobs at the bottom, too many people for it. So the economic factors were real. And I have to say, it looks to me that the Democrats missed it. They missed it altogether. And here it had these low-skilled, uneducated whites who for years have been a pillar, a centerpiece of the Democratic Party. In the days when the Democratic Party really looked out for the little guy, now in name. Okay, now it makes it symbolic thing. But clearly the policies really weren't geared to help that much. That takes us to the political factors. So we talked about the demographic, economic, this confluence of political factors. Got to start with the Sanders-Clinton fight. This was costly in so many ways. Clinton spent months fighting back Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, focused on this economic inequality. He was there. He got it. There were a lot of things Bernie Sanders didn't get. You know, not sure about where the country starts and ends once you get past the borders, okay? But that's okay. And, you know, we all have our expertise. And what happened out of this is that he saw what was going on with these people. And the kids got into this, okay? The young, the millennials, because they worried about their jobs when they got out of school, because Bernie Sanders was talking about the folks a half a generation in front of them. So they identified with this. The problem is, while Sanders was focusing on inequality and self-indulgent politicians, and you know, it doesn't take much for people to honor that idea, they came together. They finally came together. She finally won after expending so much energy, you know, so many resources over so many months, you know. After getting the nomination, in some ways people thought were a little bit of a conniving thing, you know, with Debbie Wasserman Schultz perhaps helping her along. Even if she wasn't, she was accused of it. And if people already feel the system is rigged against you, they're going to believe the accusation before they have the facts anyway. We know this about people, especially when things aren't going right. So Sanders and Clinton make up. But the making up was token. And more than token, Sanders may have made up with Hillary Clinton, but his followers were another story. Getting them enthusiastic, getting them empowered, getting them to feel like the nominee and her minions really represented them was another story altogether. So they had little energy. They had little energy, the Sanders followers, for a hypocritical, in their mind, a hypocritical Democratic establishment, inattentive to the nation's real needs. And so Sanders and Clinton, they went through the motions, going from city to city, barnstorming around. You know, the crowds they had would be bigger if Sanders was there, but not if he wasn't, okay? Because they went to see Bernie Sanders. Oh yeah, she's there too. Okay, well, you know what, oh yeah, she's there too? That's not a good sign. That means there was not that connection. We know that now, okay? So they went through the motions, large symbolic, and the lack of enthusiasm for Clinton by the Sanders supporters was absolutely palpable. And it differed so much from the wild excitement that you saw with the Trump supporters. Now, a lot of those supporters were wacko bananas, okay? No question about it, okay? No question about it, you know? There was every ism with these groups, okay? You know, every possible political malady, you know, that made us want to throw up was in that group, okay? And you know what? Hillary Clinton, for all the talking and all the controversy, was right when she said half of his supporters are deplorable. Because these deplorable people wanted to get those Mexicans out right now. These deplorable people didn't hesitate to take on physically people who differed from Trump at those rallies. These deplorable people supported him when he talked about banning Muslims. So you know what? If you're talking about American values and the ethics that we have, about how we believe truly in freedom of speech and respect and equality, yeah, they were deplorable. But that didn't matter. That didn't matter because he was on a roll and they were rolling with him. Because they finally had someone someone, these people, you know, these white nationalists, you know, all the others, they had someone who would speak their voice. And that meant a lot to them. And they went along with him, and you know what? He went along with them. He did. He did. Now, you might want to criticize him for that. You know, what kind of friends do you have? Maybe so. But he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, and it worked. It worked. So the enthusiasm gap is absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, it dovetailed nicely with the distrust for Hillary Clinton. Many viewed Hillary Clinton as a vessel for more of the same. Remember, I'm going to do what Barack Obama's done. We are twins. We're right there. We're together, you know? And that bond, which she thought would be helpful, he thought too, actually became a bad sign. Oh no, I don't want more of that because I'm not getting my share. She focused so much along the way, once she got the nomination, she focused so much on defining Donald Trump that her policies, her plans, and let me tell you something, there are volumes if you go to her website. Can't sleep? Go to Hillary's website. I mean, you got a topic, you know, the future of the tsetse fly? I've got a policy, okay? There was nothing out there that she didn't have a 40-page plan on with footnotes. So, you know, she had all these things, and she's brilliant, and she's a policy wonk. She makes Paul Ryan look like a first grader. She's such a policy wonk. She can talk to you about anything, and I mean with authority. I mean with authority. The woman knows what she's talking about. But you know what? She never got down there. She never started talking to people on their terms. And when she did, it was only after she spent so much time trying to define Trump for all the things that he was. And believe you me, they were out there. You know, he's a sexist, he's a misogynist, all these things, you know, all these this. And everybody would say, yeah. But he's real. I know people like him. I've even done some of that stuff. Okay, I get it. He's like me. There was that bomb. And it tells you something about this country, that there would be that kind of bomb. So she focused a lot on him instead of what she needed to do to show people how she would work with them, how she would lead them, how she would be on their side. And in this ironic way, Hillary Clinton fell into a Trump trap. Because she wound up fighting the election largely on Trump's terms. And they both went negative. Most of all, Clinton was viewed as a candidate who withheld the truth. The email issue was important. Not because of some cockamamie emails like Bernie Sanders said, enough of these emails already. Okay? Not because of the personal server per se, but because she owed no apology. Okay? She stonewalled for months. Then she apologized only because she had to. Not because she saw the error of her ways, but let me apologize and check off this box. No differently than when Trump was asked about David Duke's support, okay, and he finally figured out who David Duke was. Not a man of great breadth. He said, yeah, I disavow his support. I disavow. Can we go on now? Check the box. He checked the box. Okay? And he really didn't want to disavow David Duke's support because of the energy that came with it. That's what he cared about, not David Duke, but the energy that came with it. And you know what? She didn't really want to apologize, but she did because she had to. And that was unfortunate. It really was unfortunate. Because then it made it look like, you know, she was a person who really didn't think that she could make mistakes. And you know what we all do? Yeah, the easiest thing to do in politics, I don't understand these people sometimes. When you make a mistake, the first thing you say is, I'm sorry. My mistake, I didn't mean to do it, I'm sorry. You don't wait until you're dragged into saying it. You get out in front of the issue. And she didn't. You know, bad judgment. And out of this is such an irony, because Hillary Clinton was by far the best prepared candidate for the presidency in terms of real-world experience, in terms of a rich history, and a proven ability of a senator who could work with Republicans across the aisle at a time when nobody does that. A world leader, Secretary of State. She had an incredibly high public opinion following for years, And the woman is a doer. She struck out to get health care done during the Clinton administration. Didn't get it, but she never gave up. She worked for children's rights before people even knew there was an issue about children's rights. She worked with trying to undo segregation when it was so unpopular, especially in places like Arkansas. She meant it, and she was a doer. She was not a talker. She had a rich career. But somehow those attributes were overshadowed by her personality deficiencies. And that is in itself a tragedy. Along with this, we have to make one or two other points when we talk about the political factors. Something that people don't know about or don't think about very much is that Hillary Clinton was attempting to defy tradition. Go back to 1948. Between 1948 and 2016, 68 years, okay? Between all those times, only once did a candidate of the same party of a president who served 2 terms get elected. Only once. And that was George H.W. Bush in 1988. Only once. And why is that? Well, Americans, are kind of, I don't know, don't get us too confused. Oh, we'll stick with these guys for a couple of terms. We'll go with those guys for a couple of terms. We'll go back and forth. We can't get in too much trouble, because we're not going to let anyone stay there too long, So, and now let me go back to my soapbox. The fact that Hillary Clinton was trying to get elected to that 3rd term, basically, was in itself history. You're playing with the public's political psyche here, because it's not natural. It's just not natural. It's time for me to turn the other way. I don't care who's running. I'm happy to turn the other way. It's all there is to it. It's like when you ask a question, you raise your hand. How did it get up there? Somebody voted this. This is what we do. This is what we do as people. We're socialized, and we are socialized to go back and forth. Oh, I'm not talking about hardcore Democrats. I'm not talking about hardcore Republicans. You still got a third out there who doesn't know what to do. They don't know what to do. I'll go back. I'll go for it. I'll go back. I'll go for it. I'm a good voter. So, in attempting to, swim upstream for better, that's the way I can say it, I guess. She really had herself a huge mountain to climb. And then there was Donald Trump. For the first 8 months of his candidacy, the man who's ended his presidential run always pointing at them, the media in the back of the room, okay? For the first 8 months of his candidacy, he received a pass from the media that you could never believe. He received, according to one study, $2 billion worth of free publicity. He was everywhere. Can you remember this? About a year ago, he was on everybody's show. You name it. He was at the Today Show, the Tomorrow Show, the Yesterday Show. It didn't matter. He was on every show. And he was everywhere criticizing everyone. Mind you, he had no answers for the problems that he cited. But he was going to make America great again, I'll tell you that. And he had those hats, yes sir, that he got in China. It's a little problem. The media, especially 24-hour cable, they viewed Trump as a caricature. This guy was a respite. Forget the boring studies about an airplane that goes down or this or that. We got Donald. This is great. He's going to talk about saving the world. He doesn't know squat. But that's okay because, we're getting a kick out of this. And ask him a question, about this or that. He said at one point, Trump, he said, don't worry, when I get elected, I will preserve the 12th Amendment of the Constitution. That's the one that talks about presidents and vice presidents get elected and say, he doesn't know. I'm not sure he's ever read it. In fact, you remember the Khan, Mr. Khan, I think there's a lot of truth to Mr. Khan when he offered his Constitution, I'm not sure he'd know which end to open, but there was something about that. Anyway, He was a character. He was an amusing distraction from the real candidates, from the Jeb Bushes, from the Marco Rubios, from the John Cases, from the guys who were bad substance. They knew what they were talking about. You know, of course, they put everybody to sleep after 90 seconds. Trump wouldn't do that, okay? Because he'd be talking about everything. And he was the best at everything. You know, only he could fix everything. Only he could. Just ask him. They never challenged the media. They never challenged his preposterous claims. That they were so outlandish that nobody took him seriously. They would laugh at the end of it. That's the Donald, I gotta tell you. You'll never know what he's going to say next. He didn't know it was in the Constitution, and he boasted. He boasted when at one point, it's going like Meet the Press or something like that. I mean, you know, this is gravitas from Meet the Press. You know, I mean, this isn't Hollywood Tonight. And it was Chuck Todd or somebody like that said it was, well, you know, you're talking about a lot of things, Mr. Trump. How do you know all about that? He said, generals don't know anything. He said, how do you know all these? He said, I get my information from television shows like yours. I can now see the Oval Office, about 5 or 6 televisions all across the wall. I think there may be some cartoon shows on there, but that's okay. He's getting information. During the Republican debates, well-qualified Republicans didn't even know how to manage the Trump phenomenon. And he attracted huge crowds wherever he went. Of course, he played his numbers as well, but what the heck. Math wasn't his forte either. His behavior, if you think about it, was so extraordinary, nobody knew how to do it. Look, here's the best way I can explain this. Imagine you're going to a professional, a boxer. The boxer's trained for months. You know, he's got a great big build, and he's punching the bag, and he's got a sparring partner, this and that. He knows everybody knows where he hits, all that kind of stuff. And in comes a guy with brass knuckles, a couple of knives, rope or two, okay, a whip maybe, you know, and he's not there. He's there to drag that guy down however he can. He didn't play by the rules. He doesn't know about rules. He did whatever he had to do to win. And these people, these Republicans, who were so proper, you know, who would never talk about these things, and who tried to stay on message, and every time they did, he would just cut them down. And rather than go back and put him in his place, they cowered. The one time, as Trump called him, they have a nickname for everybody, Little Marco, spoke up against Trump. You know, he was practically sent to a corner. And he went. You know, this is amazing, you know, but that's what bullies do. And that's how he behaved. He behaved. Clinton had her issues, Trump had his. Believe you me, and you probably know that. His behavior wasn't much different than the general election. It was all they could. And you would hear him. Clinton would say something, wrong, wrong, wrong. Who the hell interrupts like this? I learned this in kindergarten. You don't interrupt. Well, that's if you go by the rules. That's if you're raising your hand to go out. He's not doing that. He's rushing to the door and locking it behind. Okay, because that's what he does. He doesn't go by the rules. But look what it's got. It's amazing. And as the public tired of all these political niceties that they've been watching and the correctness, well, you know what? They forgave Trump. They forgave him for all of his foibles. Okay, locker talk. Some kind of locker talks. Okay? But after all, he was the real thing. He was the real thing. He had the same kinds of faults that we do. And you know what? They identified with that. And so as a result, the turnout for that bunch of whites, uneducated, angry, looking to blame somebody, immigrants, for their problems, sky high, sky high. Yet at the same time, while the Democrats had such a great get out the vote before the election, early voting, on election day, nobody came out. Nobody came out. So for Clinton, for Hillary Clinton, where traditionally she and other Democrats had picked up 40% of the white vote, she picked up 37. Where Barack Obama picked up 96% of the African American vote, she picked up 88. It's good, but it's not 96. Where Barack Obama had 73% of Asian Americans, she got 65. Where Barack Obama had 71%, she got of Latinos, she got 65. You know what? That adds up. It added up to those 7 million voters. 7 million fewer voters who participated in that election. The first time in memory it's gone down by that kind of number. Most of whom had voted for Democrats in the past. And you go back to what we talked about at the beginning of this discussion. 1% here, 1% there, 1%. There it is. There it is. There it is. The great democratic machine ran out of gas. But it takes us to where we are today. You know, how did this happen? Those demographic factors, those economic factors, those political factors, they all converged. So, okay, this is what we got. You know what? This is the hand we play. What can we expect moving forward? A couple of ways to look at this. Short term, Congress will give plenty of room. We call this the honeymoon period. The first 6 months, 2 years of the president's administration, he can almost stand on his head, you know, and get away with it. Well, he was exercising. I mean, people give him lots of room. It's another story. People give him lots of room. Congress will give Trump lots of room to set up his agenda, and they'll talk about it, and they'll give him room to do whatever he wants. The public is going to be patient, and rightfully so. You saw the president today, Obama, say, look, he's our president now. You might be a Republican, you might be a Democrat, you might be a vegetarian, it doesn't matter. He's our president. He's our president, and we need to help him succeed. That's what Obama said, and you know what? That's what every outgoing president says, as it should be. So the public will be patient, partly out of exhaustion. Because I know, and you probably too, so many people who Tuesday night, they were exhausted. Just done, spent. So the public is spent. They'll give him his due. They'll give him his time. They'll give him his chance to succeed. Long term is another interesting story. And here are some of the things we can expect before that 4-year term is over. He will work very hard and succeed in nullifying most of President Obama's executive orders. That's because when a president writes an executive order, it's not quite the same thing as a law. An executive order comes from law, a law that he's writing about. And an executive order is the president's interpretation of how that law should be implemented. And the executive order lasts only until and unless a future president changes it. I got a hunch Donald Trump's going to be signing his name a lot on executive orders. Okay? So I think you can expect any of the executive orders President Obama has written with respect to climate change, particularly what the EPA does. Trump's going to say, I rescind it, and he can't. Immigration rules, for example, the president said, you know, he can't make immigration reform, but he said, you know, children who are born in the United States, and who come to the United States rather, you know, with their undocumented immigrant parents, they can stay here. Okay, they're allowed to stay here. Well, that's an executive order. No more. The Keystone Pipeline that the president rejected, okay, well, Trump believes in oil, Trump believes in coal, Trump believes that climate change is a joke, so why shouldn't I build the Keystone Pipeline? Federal Land Management Program, where Obama issued several executive orders protecting large swaths of land from development, from mining, from fracking, from all these types of things. We need that kind of energy. They'll sign this executive order. There's no way to undo an executive order unless someone takes the president to court and the courts find, federal courts find that the president has done something unconstitutional. Well, undoing an executive order is not going to be unconstitutional. When you write something sometimes, you know, every once in a while the courts say, nope, you went too far. Now you're legislating instead of implementing. No, you can't do that. But in this case, undoing what he's already done, what the other president's done, that's a piece of cake. Okay? So you can expect a lot of executive orders rescinding the president's, Obama's. You will also see efforts to make a legislative change. Now this is working on another level. Here you've got to work with Congress. Now remember, We're in this golden period if you're Republican, because now you've got the House and the Senate and the President more or less on the same page, okay? And so when that happens, you've got a much better shot at getting what you want done. Bye-bye Affordable Care Act. I can't tell you to what extent it's going to be changed, repealed or replaced, however they call it, but we can look for very, very serious changes in the Affordable Care Act. And a lot of this is going to go right back to the consumer. It's up to you to take care of yourselves, and the government's going to get out of this mess, because remember, government's too big anyway, if you're Donald Trump. Abortion, well, it's not that he's going to try to prevent abortion, but he's going to support legislation that turns abortion over to the states. It's your problem. And we all know how different the states are on managing that issue. Gun control is going to back off of federal, ask Congress to back off on federal requirements, all right, and make gun policy as free-flowing as possible. Police powers, he's already endorsed legislation that would broaden police powers on such issues as search and seizure, stop and frisk, things like this. This should be part of the American way, sort of. He will have some success. He will have a lot of success, given that both chambers of Congress now have those majorities. And you've got a great, and I mean this sincerely, leader, Paul Ryan, if they leave him in there, who is a policy wonk that Trump is not. And so you take Trump's ideas and Ryan's policy wonkishness, and you'll see some things done, okay? And he'll get a lot done in those 4 years, I think so. But of all these things, I think his legacy will come with the Supreme Court. For more than 40 years, whenever I taught American government, I told my students, the most important, the single most important factor in electing the president is not how he feels about the minimum wage, not what she wants to do about abortion, not any of those things. It's the fact that the president nominates federal judges when there's a vacancy, including Supreme Court justices. There is nothing more important, because the president may be gone in 4 or 8 years, but some of these guys are there for 30 or 40 years, sometimes for life and longer. Okay? They don't go away. Okay? And so what you see here is not the possibility, my friends, the absolute likelihood that the court, for the next 25 to 30 years, is going to be very, very conservative. And I'll tell you why. There's already one opening, right? Merrick Garland's been sitting around for several months now, and I think he's figured out he's not going to get it. Okay? So Trump will withdraw that nomination, and he will go ahead and make his own nomination. He's already promised that he's going to nominate strict constructionists, is the term, justices, along the lines of his hero, Antonin Scalia. Okay? Now, the court, as you probably know right now, in broad philosophical terms, is formed. So bye-bye, Merrick Garland. Hello, strict constructionists. That's 5-4. Okay? All right, 5-4, you never know. You know, Anthony Kennedy has to be the day, gets a cold, maybe he comes along with us, that kind of thing. So the liberals will do. But it goes more than that. Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 83 years old. Anthony Kennedy, a sometime liberal, sometimes moderate, conservative, but he moves over, okay, is 80. Stephen Breyer is 78. And then there's a big drop. And all of a sudden, you got whippersnappers. Right? Oh yeah, there's Sotomayor, I get it, and there's Elena, you know, but the fact of the matter is that the rest are young. So by the time Trump is done, by the time his term ends, I think there's a good chance that the court will be a relatively young 7-2 conservative majority. This is going to affect all the kinds of issues we've been talking about. All the kinds of issues. Aren't you feeling uplifted?
No.
I guess I'm giving a talk to one crowd. This is likely to be his greatest accomplishment of his presidency. Far more important than getting rid of Obama, because it's going to last so long. Okay? So, where do we go from here? I'm going to offer you some hope. I didn't say a lot. Emotions aside, this is another election result. It's another election result. Happens every 4 years. It's another election result in what is, believe it or not, the world's best democracy. And it is. You don't see people leaving here to live in Lithuania. Oh, I want to live in Estonia. Oh, I can't wait to get to Burma. No, they all want to come here. They all want to come here. Because for all of our faults, for all of our failings, for all of our controversies, it's the world's best democracy. And so this is the latest in a string of events. They occur every 4 years, and one group peacefully turns over power to the other. It's really amazing. There are no cabals, there are no military guys coming in. It's truly amazing. And we saw that. We saw that today with the meeting between Obama and Trump. Do we really think these guys want to go out for drinks sometime? No. No. But you know what? Trump came in there respectfully. Obama is there to help him. Obama will leave a letter for Trump the way every president has left a letter for the next guy. And they all root the next guy, no matter how different they are, to do the best they can for their country. And they're for them in that sense. So, in spite of the fact that for several years there was Trump leading the birther movement, in spite of the fact that Obama repeatedly said he viewed Trump as unfit for the job, here we had the 2016 version of the odd couple. There they were today. And, you know, when you look at this, some will be overjoyed by this dramatic shift, and I think we're going to see a dramatic shift in policies and values. Others are going to be in despair. But you know what? I know this is hard sometimes to hear, but the country's going to endure. We're going to get over it. It doesn't mean forget it. We're going to get over it, you know? And the wonderful thing about American politics is that today's losers can be tomorrow's winners. That's what makes it so great. You can do it, you know? And I guarantee you that the Democrats right now are going through hell. And they're looking to blame everything, you know? And it's not just Comey and all these simple things. It isn't. It just isn't. And they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. Like the Republicans have figured it out in the past. You know? They had their dark days for many years, and they came back towards once. Less certain about how we're going to go back and forth, the ebb and flow, is whether we'll tackle and come up with reasonable solutions to some serious problems that have plagued this country for so long and right through this election. What are we really going to do, if anything, about income inequality? How are we going to come to terms, or can we, with discrimination? Is it possible to do education reform so that we finally give a 21st education to our students who are leading 19th century lives in the classroom? We're falling so far behind other countries, it's not done. What about infrastructure repair? How long do we have to put up with airports that look like homeless shelters? We go around the world to these wonderful airports that are amazing. Our bridges are falling apart. You know, our roads are too crowded. What do we do about that? Are we going to really invest? Really invest? You know, what are we going to do about health care? If we're going to repeal and replace, how's it going to happen? And who's going to win and who's going to lose? And can we help those at the very bottom? Do we want to? What are we going to do about a sound defense? We can't get it in TV programs. How are we going to make it work? You know, what do we do about our alliances? What do we do about hot spots in the world that were totally ignored in this election? The South China Sea, for example. Nobody paid attention to it. Okay? What are we going to do about trade? You know, to what extent can we really change that? You know, and how can we do it in a way that it's fair for everybody, not just us? These are going to be some of the challenges for the new government, led by President Donald J. Trump. He's placed many of these issues on the public agenda, and now we await his proposals and the congressional response for resolving them. And to my way of thinking, in this sense, really, the most interesting times await us. Thank you. Let's go. It's not my question.
We'll try to get a mic to you. Karen's got one. Okay, we got somebody right here. Right in.
Thank you. Larry, that was great. Thanks so much for your insight. Finally, the paralyzing political fog lifted off my body this morning with two words blazing in front of my eyes, which were midterm election. I am hoping the DNC can get their act together, and of course, if they do, where will they go for a midterm election? And do you see at this point any hope for whatever that might mean?
Sandy, if you haven't been depressed, let me offer this. The Democrats there are 33 Senate seats up in 2018. 26 are held by Democrats. 26. So that's going to be a real challenge. Now, what they have going is that the out party during an off year, during a non-presidential year, tends to gain. Not every time, but most of the time. So they may not gain seats, but it may help them from losing them. The out party tends to gain in the House as well, a few. But one of the problems here is a systemic one. And particularly the House of Representatives, if you look at all of the seats in the House, 40% of those seats are in states with Republican governments that have been able to gerrymander those seats. Okay? You can die and get reelected, right? And probably get a raise. 10% of the seats are in Democratic states with gerrymandered seats. 50% are in states with independent issues, as we have in California. So the Republicans, in a very real way, start off with 40%. And all they have to do is get a few, and they've got a majority in them. The Democrats have to crawl, since they've only got those 10%, to get as many of the reasonably apportioned states and hopefully some Republicans. So it's hard for me to imagine that there'll be a big change in favor of the Democrats in either chamber in 2018. I do think it's a time for the Democrats to reflect and begin to rebuild immediately. Look, they outspent Trump more than 2-1. They outmobilized him more than 3-1. They had 5,100 people on the ground, not volunteers, paid workers throughout the country. Republicans had 1,400. So all of these things can be there again. They had some bad leadership, and they really didn't reach to where they needed to reach. They forgot some of their mandate. They did. So 2018 is going to be a tough one. I think 2020 is another story, because then we will have 4 years of this administration. And, there are already some people who said, what happened? And we already know some people who said, I wish I would have voted. Well, the horse is out, the barn door's closed, but maybe it will give people a reason. I think this is a jolt. I actually believe this is a jolt the Democrats needed. They were too complacent. Thank you. Thank you all.